Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Shachal Sadeh, Director of Admah New York, and I'm so glad to see members of our Admah New York community here today, folks from our Climate Coalition, our Jewish Green Business Network, synagogue partners, advisory council members, and so many others who care deeply about building a more sustainable and resilient future for New York and for communities around the world. For anyone who might be new to us, Admah New York cultivates vibrant Jewish life in deep connection with the earth, bringing climate action, immersive Jewish environmental learning, and youth and college students empowerment together across New York City, Westchester, and Long Island. At Admah New York, our work is grounded in the belief that Jewish values call us to care for the earth and for one another. We do that by educating, empowering, and convening people across sectors, faith leaders, young people, environmental professionals, and community members, so that together we can better understand the challenges of our time and take meaningful action. In New York, we currently support 107 Jewish organizations in creating and implementing climate action plans by providing information, opportunities, matching grants, and zero-interest loans. We have many community events emphasizing nature connection, volunteer opportunity, programs for teens through our Jewish Youth Climate Movement, and for students in various campuses with our Admah on Campus. We have a new mitzvah programs for kids who want to become climate activists and build a sustainable mitzvah project, and so much more. You can read more in the link in the chat and join our newsletters or be in touch with us directly. Part of our mission is also making sure we ourselves, as well as you, stay informed, curious, and connected to the cutting-edge innovations shaping our climate and sustainability landscape. Today's conversation is a perfect example of that. New York is navigating urgent questions around energy resiliency, equity, and climate adaptation, questions that communities everywhere are grappling with. Battery storage sits at the center or at the heart of many of these solutions. It's not only a game changer for clean energy, it is increasingly a tool for strengthening grid stability, supporting environmental justice, and bringing more neighborhoods into a healthier and cleaner energy future. Many of our coalition partners and members of the Jewish Green Business Network are directly connected to these issues, whether through policy advocacy, decarbonization project, community education, or renewable energy development. Some are just curious and wanted to learn more. Bringing us together to learn about this work helps deepen our collective understanding and clarifies how each of us can play a role in this transition. We're especially fortunate today to be joined by our colleague and friend, David Arfin, the CEO and co-founder of NineDot Energy. David leads NineDot's mission to accelerate the clean energy transition in New York City through innovative urban energy solution, driving strategy, financing, and community partnerships. Before founding NineDot, David served as VP of Strategy at Solar City, where he created the groundbreaking solar lease model that transformed solar adaptation in the US. He has consulted for the US Department of Energy's Sunshot Initiative and was entrepreneur in residence at Israel Clean Tech Venture. He currently serves at the New York City EDC Green Advisory Council, the board of Friends of the Arava Institute, a close and beloved partner of Admah, and is a member of the Clean Tech Leader Roundtable. And now he's also part of the professional committee that is supporting the growth of Admah New York. With that, I'm delighted to turn it over to you, David, to help us explore how battery storage is reshaping energy systems, opening new policy opportunities, and moving us towards a cleaner, fairer, and more resilient energy future. And if you have questions during David's opening remarks, please put them in the chat and we'll collect them in the Q&A section. Thank you.
It is wonderful to be a part of Admah and watch Admah's growth in a whole variety of ways. And it's also very fun to see a couple friends and several friends and colleagues on this. Rabbi Fred Daub, who is part of the part of the Admah family. We're all part of one family. And if you want stories of me going back many decades, Rabbi Marv Goodman is also on board, and he could tell you what a rascal I was at age 11 and ever since. So it's a real treat to be on this call. So I'm going to share some slides to kind of frame what it is that what we do and what environmental challenges there are. Let's talk about some light issues of the day, including environmental justice, batteries, and kind of what the energy grid needs, who's affected by the energy grid, and where the kind of resiliency and economics come in, because the utility grid is a really difficult and complicated structure and beast, and we play a part of trying to transition that to the next iteration or generation of where utilities can service affordably, cleanly, and cheaply. They're all of us users of electricity. So I'm going to cover a few things today, small about who I am, but Shahar, I appreciate the introduction. You've covered a lot. Why battery storage matters, and how we as a company try to be a part of the community and our commitments to kind of service New York. We have currently about 80 employees. We are based in Brooklyn at the Urban Future Lab, which is part of NYU's incubator system at the campus, the Tandon campus at NYU in downtown Brooklyn. And almost all of our employees are based within 30 minutes of New York. So a little bit about me. I'm an entrepreneur. I was inspired to get into this business after watching Al Gore's movie, An Inconvenient Truth. We were getting solar on our rooftop, or we were getting a new rooftop in Palo Alto, California, and I was curious what it would take to add solar. And that got me learning and thinking about the complexity of things like investment tax credits and depreciation and all these pieces. Ended up creating the solar lease product, as Shahar mentioned, and that helped a lot of companies and an industry grow. I think we went from maybe 50,000 homes maybe had solar in the United States before 2007, and now we're over 5 million. And so I take a little pride in making a contribution there. And I've been involved with a lot of different Jewish organizations as well. Lifelong member of Congregation Beth Jacob in Redwood City, also a member of BJ, B'nai Jeshurun in New York. I am on the board of the Arava Institute, and I think I saw one of my colleagues, Brett, is also on the board over there. And I was president of the Gideon Hausner Jewish Day School once upon a time. So let's talk about urban energy and the challenges. What's this all about? Why does this matter? How do we think of the needs of the electric grid and the impact that having a strong, resilient grid plays on the population? So let's start by saying something that is a little self-evident, but it has to be said, which is peaker plants, which spew all kinds of nasty NOx and SOx, are often located in communities with disadvantaged populations. In New York City, 750,000 people live within a mile of a peaker plant. And not surprisingly, those are low income or people of color. So the question is, what do we do about this? How do we replace peaker plants. And we'll learn a little bit about why we need to replace peaker plants. But the impact is really clear when you see a 300-foot smokestack and inefficient energy plants operating along the river. You know that there's a alternative in the long run to that. So I'm going to say this is also, climate change is not just about pollution, and it's not just about the NOx and SOx and the emissions and the danger to our respiratory systems. It also impacts so much else. And this is a story, I think, from Sunday or Saturday's New York Times, with a 3-minute video that shows kind of how New York is exposed to the next big storm. And so it's about pollution, doing climate work is not just about pollution, it's also about devastating effects. And of course, in low-lying areas, in many places, the poorest amongst the population are disproportionately impacted. So why does battery storage help? Just a basic on battery storage. So the blue line that you see there and the area under the blue, going all the way up to the peak, is when we use electricity. Most of the time, the electricity grid is utilized about 55–60% of the time. There's a lot more supply than there is demand, and you kind of go forward. And then, especially talking to Admah, New York, you know that there are some really hot days in the summer. And that is when it's 90, 100 degrees out. Everybody is running their air conditioning systems. Refrigeration loads are higher. And the next thing you know, you need to turn on a peaker plant in order to service those. And the peaker plants that they turn on only go on a few times a year. And so at around 3, 4 in the afternoon, you basically either the grid is threatened, and either you get notices to reduce your demand, or you can add supply, and we add supply by taking a battery and discharging that. And then at the end of the day, we turn off we stop discharging, and we start charging it so that we are ready for the next day. So the area that we service is really the kind of fuchsia and blue area above the grid, and I'll get a little more specific about that. So there's environmental reasons that all of us should care about the air that we breathe and what happens as a result of needing all of this electricity. And by the way, demand for electricity in the world of data centers and AI is increasing at astounding rates. It's probably going to have a 15% increase, our electricity demand over the next 5 years. And we are starting to understand and to start thinking about some of those, but the demand is high. So the pollutants, the respiratory disease, the NOx are very high. And so there's a core environmental justice component here. There's another area here. Politicians are now using the term affordability. We'll call it savings. Storage can offer the grid, and when I say the grid, I really mean ratepayers, huge benefits of being deployed in the right way at the right time in the right places by having very local distributed storage near the grid where it's needed. And electricity prices are going up. It has become a political issue. We saw this in Virginia and Pennsylvania and New Jersey recent elections, and it's going to continue to be an issue, which is we all need to care about electricity prices. If you are from a low-income family or community and more than 6% of your income goes to pay for electricity, it's a huge problem. So storage is one answer to that. A second answer that we have is in New York, there's something called statewide solar for all, which is really statewide solar and storage for all. And there's a 5% benefit for the communities and low-income families that reside in those areas, and that they can get discounts, and that's all administered through Con Edison, the large utility company. So this is a little view of how things actually work on the ground. I don't know how many of you were in New York this summer, but it got very warm in New York as temperatures went really high. So in late July, you get these grid alerts. What happens in these grid alerts is the peak power plants get called, and when they get called, they are typically the old operating plants, very high cost of operating that ratepayers end up paying, and they are also, it turns out, the dirtiest plants that go out there. So you have those, the top slide shows you have these very high days when the New York power grid goes above 10 gigawatts. The next one shows our charging. So we charge and we discharge. So the very top of it starts with we're holding on to a charge, and then as the peak hours hit, which is usually 4, 5, 6 in the afternoon, but we go from 4 to 8, we have the batteries discharge at that point in time, and that exactly helps address the peak. We discharge our batteries nearly completely, and then at midnight, we start charging our our batteries again using the grid power that's available, which typically is much cleaner than the grid power that's available during the days. That's when hydro is running and wind is blowing, and there is also much less load. So we charge up, charge. All of a sudden, it's another peak day. We have to release our batteries. We discharge it, boom, and then we do that again. And what you could see here is we released 26 megawatts of peak power during those days. Happy to get into this more, but that's just a sense of how batteries operate in the real world, in New York City, and why we are committed to this. So, mention a little bit about NineDot Energy. We pride ourselves on being part of the communities that we service. We build large-scale battery projects. Think of it as a shipping container is a megawatt. Our typical site has 5 megawatts, so it's like 5 shipping containers next to each other, and we go out and we find land. If anybody happens to have land or connections in the New York area, feel free to reach out. And we also enhance our projects by adding things like solar and EV charging. All of our technologies and every project gets strict review from the Fire Department of New York and the Department of Buildings. New York Fire Department of New York, FDNY, is the strongest fire department in the country and has the strictest standards. So we take safety very seriously. We work with a broad variety of community members. We look for land and sites, and it's often like a former gas station or a former parking lot. We work with regulators, elected officials, with community organizations, especially in the areas where we are, and with different technology providers. The picture here is a couple years ago from a ribbon cutting from our first project in the Bronx. Off of Gun Hill Road. We refer to it as Gunther. And the background on my screen that I have is the mural that the school across the street designed, and the kids made the drawings with some professional help to pull it all together. NineDot Energy, we did the first and largest project in Long Island for generation. Another first was putting the first mega packs in the Bronx and in New York. And also we are working on some vehicle to grid projects, because vehicles are another distributed source of batteries. They don't only have to be takers from the grid, they could also be contributors to the grid. As a company, we've had a lot of milestones. We've raised over $500 million in capital, and our projects are very capital intensive. We are the largest community scale developer in New York. We have 7 operating projects, and that number is going to increase as we have 60 projects that are in construction, operations, or development. And as I mentioned at the beginning, we have 80 fantastic employees, and we'll also be adding to that. We're able to make a big difference doing these heat events, and you saw kind of in more graphic detail some of what we can provide. We develop all over the New York City area. We also expect to be expanding outside of New York City in the very near future. And again, these are distributed, and that's really important, because unlike a transmission line that goes from point to point, the load is very distributed in New York. The load being where people are living and working and charging and doing what have you. So being distributed is really key to kind of a better, smarter grid. Because even if on average the grid is at 60% or 70% or 80%, you may have points that are stressed. So we have that. This is the mural that I just referenced at our Bronx battery site. It was done with students at the school. And but most important, you can see the solar carport behind there. We provide peak power so that the lights stay on in this area in the Bronx, and that really matters. We are also working on other projects. As you know, the school bus fleets are being electrified, and it's not as simple for a school bus operator to say, oh, I just bought 50 buses, now I need 5 megawatts of power. They need the ability to charge. And we really like school buses because they operate almost diametrically opposed in terms of the consumption of electricity to the power. In other words, school ends in June and starts again in September, and that is when the grid is the most stressed, and so we can charge the grid during the summer, and we can charge school buses the rest of the year. We're a mission-driven company. It's one of the reasons that Admah is such a a pleasure to align with. We have a strong mission and vision, and we live our values. And the values really comes down to the team and how we go about doing business. A couple examples. This is the school in the Bronx, the mural that I've referenced, and the kind of adopting a school, the Bronx Charter School for better learning, and working with their students, teaching them about energy in ways that third, fourth, and fifth graders can relate to and understand, and having them design what a clean, brighter future in New York is going to look like. We have a partnership with Solar One. They educate thousands of high school graduates on kind of the clean energy transition of the future. And we are providing to them, let's not just learn about solar and solar installation, but also develop curricula so that they can also train their people on battery storage. We pride ourselves on the culture and the values and the mission that I just referenced, and were recently named as one of the best places to work in New York City. And thank you for listening to this and learning a little bit about it. Happy to answer any and all questions, and I'm going to stop sharing the screen.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much.
Sure.
There are a couple of questions in the chat, and you can continue putting them in. I'll just go one by one. Bob Schloss had the first one, but he dropped, so thankfully we're recording. The question was, does NineDot only work with utilities? Does this have application for data centers?
Right now, we only work in the communities and do what we call in front of the meter. So in electricity, there is in front of the meter and there's behind the meter. Behind the meter would be if you had one on your house or on your business and you were trying to have some of that power or all that power go into the business. That is behind the meter. Right now, we just do front of the meters. We haven't focused on the AI infrastructure. It is a different need and process than we have now. It's going to be needed. I think the solution there is likely to be much more along the lines of both generating on site as well as storing on site. So it's a good question. It's a big business. Somebody's going to do well in it, but we're not going to be a first mover there.
Second question came from Elliot Rabin. Hi, Elliot. Good to see your face. And it was, why are peaker plants so much worse than other energy plants?
So there are baseline plants that are used and relatively clean and efficient. So you first use up your efficient resources first. It's the plants that get turned on that are 50, 60, 70 years old technology, old inputs, and expensive to maintain. And you basically, that's the break glass in case of emergency. And so they are just not particularly, you want to take off some of those plants. Now you can ask, what's the difference between a peaker plant and a regular plant? It's a fair question. I think of it as the worst of the existing fleets, the ones that the Public Service Commission would really like to take offline fastest, because the way the utility model works, business model works, the more the utility spends on infrastructure, the more money their shareholders get in terms of returns. So they're not all that motivated to reduce peaker plants, but all the utility commissioners and politicians would like to see them reduced. they're expensive and they're dirty.
There's a question from Matthew Liebman. How do you make money? Do you pay less for non-peak electricity and charge more for peak times?
Yeah, so we basically work off of the utility tariff, and New York has a great program called the Value Distributed Energy Resources. And the short answer to that is we take a site like the one behind me. This one is a landing of a battery in Staten Island, and I can see on the left side, not holding the battery, is Sandra Prue, one of our wonderful project managers. So we put in millions of dollars into every site that we have in terms of equipment. And then we sign a interconnection agreement and we pay the Con Edison for the ability to interconnect to their service. And so just rough numbers, we may put up $15 million for a site in terms of equipment. We then have to finance those. We do that. In terms of electricity, we charge, as required by our agreement with the grid, between midnight and 8 a.m. when power is very cheap, and we charge at a very low rate. We discharge between, it's site specific, but typically between 4 and 8 p.m. And we, based on that value stack and providing electricity at those times, we get a much higher rate. So there is a buy low, sell high, but only because we have invested years and millions and millions in the equipment to allow us to do that. And this is all a really good program. I should say New York really had, after Hurricane Sandy, they did a terrific job of reinventing the grid, and I give credit to NYSERDA, to Governor Hochul, to her predecessor, Governor Cuomo, for basically trying to build a cleaner, more resilient grid and building programs like the Value Distributed Energy Resources. And it's a market-based program, and it's the best program in the country.
Many more questions. What are the obstacles to expanding this to support renewables, to use it beyond peak demand time? And this is coming from Mimi Bluestone.
Okay. What are the obstacles of using renewable?
To expanding battery storage to support renewables.
So there are the obstacles is having good interconnections and the electricity grid. And so ideally, every time there is a solar field out there, there's also storage to cover it. Also for residential rooftop or commercial and industrial rooftops, you pair both the generation, say with solar, as well as the storing it, and sometimes you're serving the building the load that is there, and sometimes you are serving the grid. The limitations are really driven by kind of policy and economics. Are there strong policies in that location? Does the city or the town or the township that you're locating in allow you to place batteries there? New York is interesting. To say the obvious, land is expensive. We couldn't put a 5 megawatt plant there, which would require 25 acres. In New York, there are no 25 acre available sites in New York. But where there is renewables, there should be batteries, and where there are not renewables, there should also be a way to store them so that you can discharge at the right times.
So that actually brings another question, not in any specific order. What does battery storage look like outside the dense urban center of New York? Can battery storage be implemented in suburban and or rural areas?
Completely. So the picture behind me, I'll just lean a little bit. That is a battery. And so it looks like I said, it looks like a shipping container. And if you looked inside, it would kind of look like a server farm, only they are battery cells instead of processors. Batteries are everywhere. Batteries are in our cell phones, in our earpods, on our laptops. We will have more and more batteries in our homes. We will have batteries. There are batteries in our vehicles, and sometimes, like I said, those batteries are going to take from the grid, and sometimes they are going to give to the grid. You will have kind of smallish sites like the ones that we do that are roughly 5,000 square feet. And then you will also have, especially near big transmission lines in the more rural areas, you will have big battery farms that are, 150 megawatts, 300 megawatts. Going back to the question of data warehouses, you may have co-located with those large battery farms. You may also have other forms of generation, be that wind, be that hydro. A key part of the economics of data centers is the cost, not just of the land and the construction, but it's really the cost of the electricity and who is bearing the burden for that cost of electricity, and access to water and who is bearing the cost. And I think there's all kinds of scenarios. This is beyond this conversation, but what happens when a energy hog like a data center requires a disproportionate amount of the grid, and the grid is not supporting it? Who are the policymakers and regulators going to protect, and who are they going to tax? And that's a bigger, broader issue that we could talk about some other time.
Okay, so I'll turn to, because you raised the politicians, so two questions.
Yeah.
One is, how do you anticipate working with the new elected mayor in terms of moving your projects forward? This comes from Michal. Hi, Michal. And another related question is, are there environmental justice concerns when you cite the battery storage installation? And if so, how do you deal with this? This comes from Matthew.
Okay. So two different questions. In terms of the incoming mayor, he is an environmentalist. He has said and sponsored progressive legislation in terms of this area. He has so far been appointing people who we think are thoughtful people who will come up with good policies that balance out the needs of communities and the electric grid. You never know when somebody takes office what they're really going to do and who they're going to surround themselves by, and they may have their statements at the beginning, and then you see what happens after a crisis or two hits in any which area. But I think that from a environmental justice side, this mayor, the incoming mayor, should be strong, and I think the current mayor also has really been supportive in terms of the city of Yes and updating some of the opportunities for building the smarter city of the future. The second question was
about environmental justice concerns when your site battery storage installation.
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we look at storing, at putting a battery on the site, we look at the community and the impact of the community. We will reach out to the community and work with them. We have designs around the sites that we can also get community inputs from. There will be and there should be legitimate questions that get asked when a battery is coming into your area, and we need to educate people well on why we do what we do, why it will serve them and the community well. and how these operate and what the fencing around it is going to look like and what the noise level is and how we address that. From a safety concern, we take tons of precautions. And as I mentioned earlier, the Fire Department of New York reviews every site. We have belts and suspenders. We have alarm systems and alert systems. We work with the local fire stations who are closest to that site in terms of emergency response. We have heat sensing devices. We do a lot to make sure that they are operated safe, and it's not just us. It's what is it's what all battery operators need to be doing, especially in a dense urban environment. So, yeah.
Great. Our good friend Brett Cohen is,
Hey,
first of all, saying kol hakavod for everything that you're doing. And the question is whether you see a role for homeowners to play in terms of power walls that can be drawn on by the utilities.
yeah. So, hey, Brett, our board member,
See you.
active in Admah. um, I power walls or the equivalent will be in lots of homes and are already in lots of homes around the country. New York is an exception. New York City is an exception to that. They're slower moving because the fire department is cautious. Let's also put this in context. New York City has had some devastating fires that have resulted from e-bikes, batteries that get charged, probably several batteries charged together, strung together, maybe non-compliant batteries, maybe non-compliant power strips, maybe plugged into a 1920s building. There's been some abuse of kind of how batteries should be charged on e-bikes. And those are real concerns, and those need to be addressed. As a result, as a result of some bad behavior and some fire department issues, there has essentially been a ban in New York City on residential batteries. There are efforts to, and things are in motion that will change that. So I think we will see more and more of that, but we'll see outside of New York City a lot more power walls, either because, and there's going to be two incentives for people. One is because when their power goes out, they want they either need for medical reasons or they want for comfort reasons or what have you. So where there's a lot of power outages, you'll see more electricities. Right now, people use backup generators for that. The second reason is if the signals come out from the policymakers and the regulators saying, if you have a battery, you can charge the grid at those peak times and be paid well, then it will be essentially a profit center for a household to be able to provide what we do in a large scale, to be able to provide that in a small scale. And I think form factors are going to be interesting too. I just think if you want a kind of a premonition of where things are heading, I think you will see lots of different forms of batteries that either they'll go on the roof of a Manhattan building or a New York City building, they'll go on to the wall, they may just be kind of standalone pieces. I think you're going to see some interesting forms in the next few years. But when you look around, batteries are absolutely everywhere already. Most of the batteries that you see everywhere are just takers from the grid, but they will also be givers to the grid. And this is, I think, going to really help on that issue I mentioned earlier of affordability and not just building more and more infrastructure, by the utility that gets rate-based and rates go up. But I think there's the potential for a smarter grid that uses assets and signals to use assets much better. Love these questions. Keep them going.
Yeah. Our own Greg Altman from the Climate Action Team is asking a bunch of questions. One is, what is the lifespan of NineDot sites, and do they become less effective over time? Another question is, how do you differentiate, how does NineDot differentiate itself from peers or competitors also working on commercial industrial battery storage system? What is NineDot's competitive advantage?
Okay. So I will talk about NineDot's competitive advantage. It's great people who are smart and clever and doing things in the right way, in a focused way. We don't build our own technology, so we are buyers like every other potential competitor out there of similar batteries, and there's a very small list of eligible batteries that FDNY has approved. Our capital, we've raised a lot of capital, but our capital rates aren't any cheaper. It's basically execution, strong teamwork, proprietary knowledge, relationships, how we treat people. I would say that's a part of it. And the second, and this is both a good and a bad, is we have been very, very focused on New York City and how New York City operates, and the regulations and the tax codes and the zoning codes and the fire department. We invest a lot in these local relationships, which has enabled us to be, we are 30 to 40% of the community solar market, community battery market in New York, based on public information. And the good thing is we know New York, we live in New York, we operate in New York, we know the people, and we're focused. The bad news is we're not diversified. So one of the things I did not learn well enough in business school is that you can diversify risks. We can't diversify our risks so that we're not dependent on New York. And so that is just something that I think about. But our secret sauce is just our people and how we are inspired and motivated and focused. Second question was?
The first question was about the lifespan of your sites.
Yeah. So the program that we work under basically is a 25-year program, but it will likely get extended because our assets and our interconnections are going to be part of the topography of New York electricity grid. So after 25 years, I don't think that they're going to want to see us take our batteries off the site and have a strip mall come into that site. I think it's going to become just a fact on the ground. The batteries themselves, currently, the way I explain the summer times, currently we only really use them about 60 days a year that they're being cycled. The rest of the time they are sitting there. That's evolving. And we will cycle them more and figure out other ways and reasons to monetize them. But these batteries will likely last with a small amount of degradation through 15 years. And then in year 14, 15, 16, we'll look to see, is it worth replacing them? What's the new degradation pace? And should we replace them if we're only there for 25 years? Or should we just stay the course and leave those assets operating?
We have more questions, but I'm also mindful of the time, and I want to end this, with a question. You started about yourself, and I'll bring it back to you as a person, as someone who is definitely a leader in your professional life, but also in your communal life, and sits on boards, etc. How do you see your personal journey as a Jewish person in this very Jewish city? in moving us towards more sustainable future? How do you connect your personal and your professional life in that sense?
Uh, Great question. So one comment, I have strong ties to New York. My father, who is 101, and I took him to another basketball game 2 nights ago, is raised in the Bronx, went to Bronx Science. I have just a passion for New York. My wife was also born in the Bronx, and there's just a kind of New York is New York. There's nothing like it, and it holds a special place, certainly for us as Jews historically and currently. I am just fortunate that I have kind of found a way to do professionally what I also think needs to be done personally. And so, yes, there is a element somewhere deep inside of protection of the earth and our values. And Rabbis Fred and Marv could talk about that in much more eloquent ways, but it's a part of the core of what we do. The fact that I get to do that professionally is great. I often think about if I weren't doing this, what would I do? And I would be doing what you all do, which is learning about it, advocating, and trying to make things happen. New York City and being in New York is, as a Jew, is fun and exhilarating. The resources that are there, being able to belong to BJ and attend Romamu and attend, it's the center of the world still. And so the other thing is what happens there. And I said New York has the best program in the country right now in terms of community solar, community batteries, the statewide solar for all, and bringing benefits to low-income communities. That will be, so just to twist metaphors, hopefully a light into the nations, that other cities, other states will also be able to look what worked well in New York, what didn't work well in New York, and grow. And I think you're going to see that. And spoiler alert, some of those states also tend to be have large Jewish populations, as it turns out. And I think by that I'm referencing some recent legislation in Illinois that just got passed, and that Governor Pritzker, Maryland has good programs, New Jersey has good programs, California not so much. That is a work in progress. So I've never been asked that question. I love it. Thank you.
I'm happy for us to be the first time you've been asked. Thank you so much, David, for joining us and sharing your knowledge and being an inspiration to all of us. And thanks everyone for taking part of this and so active. There are more questions that have not been answered. In our thank you emails, you'll get the recording, but also a way to connect with David and others in NineDot should you want to continue this conversation. And stay in touch with everyone. And thank you and happy Hanukkah soon.
Yeah. Toda Shahar. And I also want to call out Karen Alter, who was on the call, who was on the board with me once upon a time at the Gideon Hausner Jewish Day School, was a Wexner Fellow, and is also our Chief Marketing Officer. And so she is a font of information also about what we do and how we do it.
So, thank you, everyone. Thank you so much.